So in this episode, we're going to start removing the top end of this LS motor. We're going to start with the cylinder heads. We're going to do the push rods, the lifters, and then the valley covers. We're going to pull the valve covers. There's 4 bolts on the valve cover, and we'll get to see what's inside this engine and what kind of condition it's in. And maybe if we're lucky, it's got upgraded trunnions or something else in it, or some other cool speed part, but probably not, because it is a junkyard motor. I'm D, and this is D-Mon's Garage. We'll remove the cylinder heads. We'll have to remove this steam lines. They're 10 millimeter. These you'll need to keep unless you're planning on upgrading them immediately, which isn't necessarily the best use of money. Next thing we'll do is we'll pull off the rocker arms. They're 8 millimeters. Break them loose, and then they'll spin out quick and easy. Some of these will turn farther if the valve is already open. Keep these in order. Keep the bolts where they came from initially, depending on whether you're planning on using new bolts or what. The stock rocker arms are actually really good and really well designed. The only failing point on them is the trunnion bearings. You can upgrade them. It's about $150 to do them yourself. And basically what it is it's just a new bearing, and you need to buy a tool. Unfortunately, the tool is about another $50, so now you're at about 200 bucks. But you will end up using the tool whenever you do upgrades on these. So the tool is actually worth it. Get them all loose, and then there's a bar that goes across. Just grab the bar and lift them all out, and at this point it can either go into your parts washer if you still have room, or it'll get put off to the side. What you'll do is you'll pull each individual push rod, check both ends. What you're looking for is if they're shiny, if they're scuffed, if you run your nail across them and they have any gouges or anything, or if they're bent. Easiest way is to put them on a flat surface and just roll them. You'll be able to see if they're bent. So far, like I said, everything in this motor, other than this side being a little dirtier than the other side, was probably from the PVC valve being on this side. Everything's looking pretty good. And you can put these in the parts washer too. Just let them soak. Next, we'll remove the 5 inside cylinder bolts. These are 10 millimeter. And then we'll remove the rest of the cylinder head bolt. Those are 15, and there is 5 down the center and 5 on the outside, below between the spark plugs. This bracket needs to come off. And then we're back to the center, or to the larger head bolts. Make sure that you're using a 6-point socket on these, and you have it well on there when you go to turn them. Last thing you want to do is start stripping the heads out on these. Now these bolts will be quite torqued on. They will take a lot of force to get them loose. Remember to support the head of the ratchet when you're doing that, so this way you're less likely to slip off the bolt. In most cases, what you're going to want to do is actually use a breaker bar on these, just so you can get the added leverage. Remember, once again, as you're pulling bolts, make sure that you're putting them in your bags and labeling your bags. The 2 N1s on the Gen 3s are shorter than the center 3.
When you first remove the head bolts, they'll make a popping noise. This is normal. It's nothing to be concerned about. I'd be more concerned about it not doing it.
Generally, these heads will lift right off. In this case, it came right off. That's just a little bit of coolant, it looks like. This has multi-layer metal head gaskets, so those can get reused depending on what you're doing. For the most part, everything looks pretty good in that. So if you look at the cylinders, there's no really bad high ridges or anything else on them. They seem to be really clean. They're not really carboned up. Most of the crap that's in there is probably from me lifting the heads off. The surface here is going to have to get cleaned up before you reseal it, which is normal. But for the most part, everything looks pretty good. Next, we'll pull lifter trays. These are the lifter trays. They're 10 millimeter. Depending on how nasty these are, the lifters don't always come out in the first time. Sometimes you'll grab these lifter trays and you'll end up with that. All I'm doing is using the flat spot, the needle nose pliers to pull on the flat spots on the lifters on both sides. What happens is you get crud that builds up around the bottom, so they don't come out that easy sometimes. And what it is they're encapsulated fully around instead of having a cut here, which tend to make them weak. In this case, yes, it is a roller lifter, and they just sit in the trays like that. And you go put them in. Generally they stay. Just be careful and don't force them, but there is a direction that they go in. Next, we'll remove the valley cover. On the Gen 3s, these are for the knock sensors. Get up underneath them, they pop off. In this case, the knock sensor broke, or at least the end on it did. And that seems to have broken that one too. Take the wiring harness off and go put it in with the rest of your wiring harness parts. Next, you'll remove the knock sensors. They're a 7/8. When you do this, use a 6-point socket. They're not in super tight, and they should pop right out. Just unscrew them until you feel the threads start to jump around, and then they go sideways. Then just reach in with a pair of needle nose and pull them out. In some cases, you can actually just reach in and pull them out with your hand. Those will also go off to the side. The next, you'll remove the 10 bolts for the valve cover, or for the valley cover. And then you pull the valley cover, and that'll also go into the parts washer. Once you get the screws out, just find an edge and work them. There is seals at the bottom where the knock sensors go, so you are actually kind of fighting against those. Like I said, you don't need to gouge at them, but you just need to work at them. Find a corner where you can just kind of get up underneath it. Sometimes 2 screwdrivers, in this case, is actually beneficial to kind of work a corner a little easier. These motors are designed, a bunch of the stuff, a bunch of the seals and stuff are all reusable. There you go. And off it comes. And then into the parts washer it goes. Take this seal, put it, like I said, wipe these off and hang them off to the side. A lot of these are reusable. And that's how you pull the top half of the engine apart. On the next episode, we're going to be removing the front end of the engine. We're going to be pulling the harmonic balancer, or the crank pulley. We're going to be doing the timing cover, the timing gear and chain. We're going to be doing the oil pan, the oil pump, the oil pickup, and the camshaft. Now get out in the garage and go do something.